The Galactic Council had been the supreme authority for as long as anyone could remember. With representatives from the most powerful and ancient species in the galaxy, they ruled over millions of star systems, enforcing peace and keeping the peace between different civilizations. Their word was law, and no one dared question their decisions. They looked down on the younger, less developed species with disdain, seeing them as insignificant. At the heart of this Grand Council sat the leaders of these advanced species, their cold, calculating eyes scanning the reports that filled their holographic displays. They discussed matters of trade, security, and potential threats to their rule. But on this day, the Council had an unusual topic on their hands, an odd, but seemingly trivial subject: Earth. In a grand hall, with towering pillars made of strange alien metals and shimmering lights that pulsed in the dark, the leaders of the Galactic Council convened. Their voices echoed as they debated. Among the many species represented, humans, those strange, young creatures from Earth, were the topic of conversation. The human race had been growing fast, with some alien species having even reported that humans had made great strides in technology. However, their rapid advancement wasn't enough to impress the Council. The Council's laughter echoed throughout the chamber. The humans, they said, were still far behind the rest of the galaxy. Their ships were primitive, their weapons outdated, and their societies still dealing with war and poverty. There were rumors that humanity was working on something new, some new kind of technology. But the Council wasn't concerned. The humans can barely manage their own planet. How could they be a threat to us? One of the Council members, a towering alien with scales that shimmered like liquid gold, scoffed. Another member, a sleek creature with eyes that glowed like neon blue lights, nodded in agreement. Yes, their ships are nothing more than old relics. Even if they do have some kind of advanced weaponry, it would not be enough to pose a danger to our fleet. The room fell silent as a third Council member, a being with multiple arms and skin that looked like the surface of a rough stone, spoke up. We have already established dominance over their star systems. They can hardly even leave their own solar system. I see no reason to worry about them. The laughter and chatter among the leaders resumed, but in the back of the room, hidden from sight, a small human ambassador sat silently. This ambassador had come to present a proposal to the Council, but hearing the mockery of his species was enough to make him realize that this was not a day for diplomacy. Instead, he sat with a clenched fist, listening to the insults and dismissive words, knowing the true power humanity had been quietly building. While the Council laughed, they had no idea that the humans had already started to change things. Behind closed doors on Earth, something extraordinary was happening. The human race had secretly built a fleet of warships. They had cracked the code for faster-than-light travel, developed powerful new energy sources, and created weapons the likes of which the galaxy had never seen before. These ships, hidden beneath the surface of their home planet, and disguised as old, obsolete vessels, were ready for battle. They had been built to be nothing like the primitive ships the Council had seen. They were sleek, fast, and deadly, armed with technology so advanced that it would make even the most experienced species in the galaxy tremble. But the Council did not know this. All they knew was that humanity was still a young species, fighting amongst themselves and struggling to maintain order on their own planet. They saw Earth as insignificant. Let them play their little games, the golden-scaled member said with a dismissive wave of his hand. When they're ready to be part of the galaxy, they'll come to us. We will welcome them as we do all species that prove worthy of our time. The human ambassador, still listening in silence, turned and left the Council chambers. His mind raced with thoughts of how humanity had been dismissed. But deep inside, he knew the truth. He knew that one day the Council would regret underestimating humanity. As he stepped into the corridors of the Council building, he couldn't help but feel a sense of anger, but also pride. Humanity had been underestimated time and time again. This would not be the last time. He had seen the plans. Earth's fleet was already prepared. The first few ships had already launched and were now scattered throughout the galaxy, quietly making their way toward the stars. The human ambassador left the building and stood outside under the vast, star-filled sky. The Council had no idea that, soon, humanity would rise to challenge their complacency. But it wasn't just about challenging the Council. It was about showing the galaxy that Earth would no longer be dismissed. Humanity had been building for this moment for years, and it was almost time to strike. The stars above twinkled as if in response to the ambassador's silent promise. The peaceful reign of the Galactic Council was about to be shattered, and humanity would be the force to do it. The first sign of the human fleet. The Galactic Council sat comfortably in their opulent chamber, the constant hum of advanced alien technology filling the air. The room was filled with representatives from dozens of civilizations, all watching a massive holographic display. It was a typical meeting, a calm, controlled environment where major decisions regarding galactic politics were made. At least, it was supposed to be. Suddenly, the holographic screens flickered, the calm images of trade routes and peaceful planets replaced with an urgent warning. A series of blips appeared on the map, small but unmistakable. The Council's representatives leaned forward, their eyes narrowing in confusion as the blips began to move across the galaxy. They were ships, human ships, faster and more advanced than anything the Council had ever seen. One of the senior members, an alien whose skin resembled the dark expanse of space, gripped the armrest of his chair. "This can't be. This is impossible." Another member, the one with glowing neon blue eyes, stood up, her voice filled with disbelief. How did they build a fleet this fast? The silence in the room was deafening as the blips began to multiply. The ships were not just a handful. They were numerous, too many to ignore. As the Council members exchanged confused glances, it became apparent that something had changed, something that no one had expected. The human ambassador, who had been dismissed just days earlier, was now standing before them again. But this time, there was no anger or frustration in his eyes. Instead, there was a quiet confidence. His voice was calm but unwavering. "They are our fleet," he said simply, the words sinking into the stunned silence of the room. "They are coming." The Council's laughter had stopped. The confidence that had once made them laugh at humanity now wavered as they realized what was happening. The humans, those primitive beings they had underestimated, had outpaced them. The fleet that had been dismissed as nothing more than an ancient relic was now fully operational and on the move. The human ambassador continued, his voice cutting through the silence. "You thought humanity was too weak, too unimportant to matter, but you were wrong." The senior member with dark skin shook his head in disbelief. "This cannot be. You said your ships were obsolete, old technology. How did you?" The ambassador nodded. "We lied. The ships we showed you were nothing but decoys. Humanity had been working on something far more advanced. We were waiting for the right moment to reveal our power." The Council members looked around at each other in panic. No one had prepared for this. No one had expected the humans to become a real threat. But now it was clear. Their power, their technology, and their speed were beyond anything the Council had imagined. The blips on the screen began to move closer to the center of the galaxy, toward the Council's homeworld. The ships, sleek and deadly, glided through space like shadows. The ship's engines glowed with an eerie, unfamiliar light, and each one seemed to be moving with a purpose. "Where are they headed?" one of the Council members asked, his voice a mixture of fear and curiosity. "Straight for you," the human ambassador replied, a small, knowing smile playing on his lips. "You mocked us. You underestimated us. Now it's time to show you that humanity will no longer be ignored." The display showed more ships emerging from hidden locations across the galaxy, all making their way toward the Council's territory. As they moved, they left a trail of destruction in their wake. Each ship was more powerful than the last, equipped with weapons and defenses that far outstripped anything the Council had seen before. One of the Council members tried to regain his composure, "This is impossible. We control this galaxy. You cannot challenge us. Your fleet is no match for our forces." But even as he spoke, he knew deep down that this wasn't the case. The humans had found a way to break through their defenses. They had found a way to outpace them, and there was nothing the Council could do to stop it. The human ambassador looked at the screen, watching as the ships continued their steady advance. "It's too late for you to stop us now," he said quietly, his voice filled with certainty. "Humanity has already won." As the words hung in the air, the Council members began to realize the gravity of the situation. The future of the galaxy was no longer in their hands. It had shifted, without warning, into the hands of a species they had once dismissed as weak and insignificant. The blips on the screen grew larger and closer, and with each passing second, the Council's fear grew. "Prepare the defenses," one of the Council members barked. "We cannot let them reach our homeworld." But it was already too late. The humans were coming, and they weren't going to stop. The shocking truth revealed. The Council chamber was now in complete chaos. Representatives from all corners of the galaxy were scrambling, their voices rising in panic as they tried to make sense of the threat that loomed just outside their grasp. The once proud and secure Galactic Council was now in disarray. The human fleet was advancing, its ships moving with deadly precision and speed toward the Council's homeworld. "Activate the defenses," shouted a nervous counselor, his voice quivering as he slammed his fist onto the table. "We can't let them breach our borders." But there was no assurance in his words. The human fleet had already proven that they could break through any barrier, and the thought of confronting such an advanced force made even the bravest of the counselors uneasy. The ambassador's words echoed in their minds. Humanity has already won. The screens in front of them flickered again, showing the human ships moving across space. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. They had expected some primitive fleet, maybe a handful of ships powered by outdated technology. But this was something else, something new, something far more dangerous. "What are they using?" one of the Council members asked, her eyes wide with disbelief. "What kind of weapons do they have?" Another representative, an alien with translucent skin, spoke up, his voice barely a whisper. "They're ships. They're powered by something we've never encountered. It's not just technology, it's something more. We don't know what it is." The ambassador, who had been quietly observing their panic, took a step forward, his face calm, his confidence unnerving. "It's called innovation. While you laughed at us, we built something far greater, something you could never imagine." The Council tried to make sense of the situation, but the truth was simple. The humans had surpassed them. The very species they had deemed insignificant and unworthy of their attention had grown into something far beyond their reach. The Council had been blind to humanity's potential, and now it was too late to correct their mistake. As the fleet continued its advance, one of the Council members tried to salvage the situation. "We have the advantage in numbers," she declared, though her voice lacked the conviction it once had. "Our ships are far more numerous than theirs. We can overwhelm them with sheer force." But the human ambassador's smirk only grew wider. "Numbers won't save you," he said softly. "It's never been about numbers. It's about what's inside the ships. It's about the will to fight." The human ships, sleek and dark, moved closer to the Council's territory. As they neared the outskirts of the galaxy, the eerie glow of their engines became more pronounced. It was a light that wasn't just bright. It was unnatural, almost alive. It was clear now that humanity's fleet was powered by something far beyond conventional understanding. It wasn't just technology. It was something that had been hidden away, something that had been waiting for this moment to strike. "They can't be serious," muttered another Council member. "This is too much. We..." Before he could finish, the display on the screen changed again. The human fleet had entered the outer rim of the galaxy. Suddenly, one of the human ships powered up in a way no one had ever seen. It was a ship unlike any other, a massive, imposing structure that dwarfed everything in its path. Its weapons systems activated, sending a warning signal across the galaxy. "I think they are serious," the ambassador said quietly, almost amused. The ship's weapons discharged in a flash of blinding light, obliterating a distant asteroid field with the kind of force that sent shockwaves across space. The blast was so powerful that even the council members could feel the tremor in the room. "Do you see now?" the ambassador asked, his voice low and dangerous. "This is humanity. You've mocked us, ignored us, and tried to suppress us. But now, we are here, and we are not leaving until we take what is ours." The room fell silent. The council was shaken, every member now realizing the truth of their situation. They were no longer in control. The very galaxy they had once ruled was now at the mercy of a species they had thought inferior. Humanity had risen, and with it, a new power had emerged that could not be stopped. "We underestimated them," one counselor admitted, his voice hollow with regret. "Now we must face the consequences." The ambassador nodded, his expression unreadable. "The consequences are only just beginning. The galaxy belongs to humanity now." As the human fleet continued to advance, the once mighty Galactic Council had no choice but to watch as their power crumbled before their eyes. They had laughed at the idea of humanity as a threat. Now that laughter had turned into a quiet terror that echoed in their minds as they realized the true extent of their mistake. The human counterattack. The Galactic Council was in full panic mode. Across the vast expanse of their space, reports flooded in from every corner. The human fleet, once dismissed as a threat, was now devastating everything in its path. No one had expected this. No one had seen it coming. The ambassador stood in the center of the room, his hands behind his back, watching as the council members scrambled to understand what was happening. His calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the chaos around him. He had known this was coming. Humanity had known this was coming. "It's over," one of the council members whispered, his voice cracking. He stared at the monitors, which now displayed the overwhelming might of the human fleet. Massive ships, older than anything the council had ever seen, glided through space like leviathans, their weapon systems charging and discharging with deadly accuracy. The energy pulses fired from the human warships ripped through asteroids and enemy fleets alike, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. The fleet had finally come. The relic fleet, a term used by the council to mock the humans, now proved to be anything but ancient and useless. The ships were vast, formidable, and armed with technology that was far beyond anything the council could have imagined. They were like ghosts haunting the outer reaches of space, but now they were alive, and they had one singular purpose: to conquer. They're not just attacking," said another counselor, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're taking everything, every station, every planet in their path." The monitors flashed once more. A report came in from a distant outpost. "Human ships have taken control of Xylon IV." The council gasped. Xylon IV was one of the most heavily guarded planets in the galaxy. It had been considered one of the safest outposts in all of council space. But now it was in human hands. "We can't hold out forever," another representative stammered. "We don't have enough firepower to repel them." The ambassador, still calm, turned slowly to face the council. "You never stood a chance. You believed that humanity's strength was in numbers. You believed that technology could be matched. But you forgot one thing." "What's that?" a council member snapped, clearly on edge. "Humanity doesn't need to be the largest force in the galaxy," the ambassador said, his voice low and filled with authority. "You just need to be the strongest." The council's shock was palpable. They had never truly understood humanity. Their arrogance had led them to underestimate the strength of the human will, the resilience that powered each and every human soldier, scientist, and engineer. This wasn't about superior technology or numbers. It was about the relentless spirit that could never be defeated. "I told you," the ambassador continued, "we have the will to fight. And now you will see what that means." The human ships, which had once been laughed at, now moved with purpose and fury, sweeping through the galaxy. Every system they entered, they took with ease, claiming more and more territory with each passing hour. The Council had no response. Their fleet, though large, was not equipped for this. They had dismissed the humans as a small, insignificant force, and now it was clear that was the biggest mistake they had ever made. The Council's military leaders scrambled to respond, but there was little hope of success. The human fleet had the initiative. The human warships were already deep within the Council's territory, cutting through defenses like a hot knife through butter. "Send reinforcements," a councilor commanded, but it was too late. The human warships had already disabled the reinforcements before they could even arrive. Meanwhile, back at the heart of the human fleet, the commander of the relic ships watched in silence. His hands gripped the command chair, but his face remained calm. He had seen what the humans were capable of. He knew this was only the beginning. "Sir," an officer spoke up, "we've secured Cylon IV. The Council is trying to regroup, but their forces are scattered. We should strike now before they can recover." The commander thought for a moment, then nodded. "No, we wait. Let them feel the fear. Let them see what happens when you underestimate humanity." As the order was relayed to the fleet, the ships slowed their advance, hanging in the darkness of space. They were a shadow on the edge of the galaxy, waiting for the perfect moment. The enemy had no idea what was coming. On the other side of the galaxy, the Galactic Council struggled to understand what had gone wrong. They had prided themselves on being the superior power in the galaxy. They had never once considered that the humans, whom they had rejected and ridiculed, could be their undoing. But here they were, staring at a force that could not be stopped. And that was just the beginning. The Council's last stand. The Galactic Council had been rocked to its core. What they had thought was a minor nuisance, a relic from a forgotten time, had transformed into a nightmare they couldn't escape. Humanity's fleet, now fully awake, was sweeping through their territory with a ferocity that the Council had never imagined. There was no stopping it. The tide had turned. The High Command of the Council had met in emergency session. The councilors, once confident and full of authority, now sat in silence, their faces pale, their minds racing with fear. They were dealing with an enemy they couldn't comprehend, an enemy that didn't play by the rules of war. Human forces weren't just attacking. They were systematically dismantling the entire galactic infrastructure, one system at a time. "How could we have missed it?" one councilor muttered, pacing the room. "How could we have underestimated them this badly? They've been hiding this power for centuries," another replied. "They've been waiting for the right moment to strike, and now they have it." The Council's military commanders, who had once laughed at the idea of a human-led fleet being a threat, now spoke with desperation. "Our forces are being overwhelmed. We have nothing left to fight them with. Their ships, those ancient human vessels, are more advanced than anything we've ever faced. Our fleet is ineffective against them." An elder councilor stood up, her voice shaky but resolute. "We need to make a stand. We cannot let them conquer us so easily. We have our most powerful forces stationed on Arcadia V. If we can hold that planet, we may be able to regroup and push back." A younger councilor shook his head. "It's too late for that. We've lost more than half our territory. The humans are taking everything without a fight." The room was filled with a tense silence. No one knew what to do next. Meanwhile, aboard the flagship of the human relic fleet, Commander Jonas stood in the center of the command deck, his eyes fixed on the star maps. His face was grim but focused. They had conquered more than half the galaxy, and yet it wasn't enough. The Council had failed to see the full potential of humanity, and now they were paying the price. "Captain," Commander Jonas said, his voice calm, "prepare the fleet. It's time to make the final move." The captain of the flagship, standing nearby, looked at him with a mix of admiration and curiosity. "You're sure we can take Arcadia V, sir? The Council's last stronghold." Jonas nodded. "Arcadia V isn't just a stronghold. It's a symbol. If we take that, the Council will have no place left to hide. Their morale will crumble, and their people will know that their time is over. The captain hesitated. But is it wise to push so far? What if they have something worse waiting for us? Jonas turned to the star maps, which showed the coordinates of Arcadia V and the surrounding fleet. We can't afford to wait. The longer we delay, the stronger they become. If we hit them hard enough now, they won't have the time to regroup. We strike fast and hard. No mercy. The order was given, and the human fleet moved toward Arcadia V. The tension on the Council side had reached its peak. The High Command had gathered their remaining forces. They were preparing to defend their final line, to make a desperate stand against the unstoppable force that had been humanity's fleet. Their hope was simple. If they could hold Arcadia V, they could buy enough time to prepare a counterattack, maybe even turn the tide. But deep down, each counselor knew the truth. Their forces were no match for the human fleet. They had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to learn, and to fight when their very survival was at stake. They were facing a power that had been underestimated for centuries, and now that power was on their doorstep. As the human fleet neared Arcadia V, a deep sense of dread fell over the Council. The systems that once seemed so safe, so untouchable, now felt vulnerable. The Council's greatest fear had come to life. At that moment, the ambassador from Earth, who had been watching the events unfold from the sidelines, stood up in the Council chamber. He wasn't there to gloat. He wasn't there to revel in the downfall of the Council. He had simply come to deliver a final message. Arcadia V is the last of your strongholds. The human fleet is already en route. The question is not whether you can hold it, but whether you can survive what comes next, he said quietly, his tone unwavering. The room fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. The Council had failed. Their reign was over. Humanity had proven that it was no longer a subject to be dismissed or a force to be feared from a distance. They had conquered the stars, and now they were going to take everything. The battle for Arcadia V. The time had come. The once proud Galactic Council had retreated to their final bastion, Arcadia V, the heart of their military power. As humanity's fleet approached, the atmosphere in the command room was tense. It wasn't just a battle for a planet. It was a battle for the future of the galaxy itself. The Council's existence depended on their ability to hold their ground. If they failed, it would mark the end of an era. On the command deck of the Relic Fleet flagship, Commander Jonas stood, his posture straight and his eyes locked on the battle screen. His face was calm, but there was a fire in his eyes that reflected the stakes of this battle. Behind him, the rest of his crew moved swiftly, preparing for the assault. "We've come too far to lose now," Jonas said to his officers, his voice steady but commanding. "This is the moment we've been preparing for. We strike now, or we risk losing everything we've gained." Captain Reynolds, the veteran strategist, looked at the map of Arcadia V. The Council is not going down without a fight. They've got their most powerful defenses set up around the planet. The orbital shields are already at full power, and their fleet is in place. Jonas nodded. "We'll break their shields. We've seen how their systems work. It's a matter of timing and force." He glanced toward the communications officer, who was monitoring the Council's transmissions. "Any last words from the Council?" The officer looked up, shaking her head. "They'd gone silent, sir. They're preparing for the worst." Jonas didn't flinch. "Good. We'll give them the worst." Meanwhile, in the heart of Arcadia V's command center, the Council's high command was in turmoil. This wasn't a war they had expected to lose. Not like this. The Relic Fleet, those ancient human ships, had torn through the galaxy like a storm. They had underestimated humanity, and now they would pay the price. "Deploy all defense units to the outer perimeter. Prepare for an assault," the Supreme Commander ordered, her voice strained with fear. "We have no choice but to fight to the last. Hold the line at all costs." But deep down, the Council knew they had no chance. Their defenses were strong, yes, but nothing they had could match the sheer power and determination of humanity. This wasn't a battle for territory anymore. This was a battle for survival. On the battlefield, the relic fleet surged forward, their warships cutting through space like blades. The tension was palpable. The Council's fleet, a force that once commanded respect, now appeared like a last-ditch defense against an unstoppable wave. The Council's ships were outclassed, their firepower ineffective against the superior human warships. Shields up, prepare for full assault. Commander Jonas barked from his position. His fleet moved into position, ready to launch their final strike. The first wave hit the Council's outer defense perimeter like a hammer. The Council's ships tried to return fire, but their shots simply ricocheted off the human warship's advanced armor. Explosions erupted in the distance, the shockwaves rippling through the space around Arcadia V. The human fleet was relentless, pushing forward with a fury that shook the very foundation of the galaxy. Back on the surface of Arcadia V, the Council's final defenders watched in horror as their skies darkened with the arrival of humanity's ships. The defensive barriers flickered, and several of the outer cities fell into chaos. The Council had spent centuries building this stronghold, but it was all coming down in a matter of hours. "Commander, we need to fall back. We're being overrun," one of the Council officers reported, his voice trained with panic. The Supreme Commander's eyes were filled with dread. "No, we hold this position. If we retreat now, we lose everything." But the truth was unavoidable. The human fleet was simply too strong. The Council's forces were crumbling under the relentless pressure. The Supreme Commander stood tall, trying to keep her composure, but it was clear she knew their fate. In space, Commander Jonas watched the destruction unfold. His fleet was cutting through the Council's defenses with ease. Every strike, every blast, was a calculated move designed to demoralize their enemies. The human fleet had not just come to conquer, they had come to make a statement. "We're almost there," Jonas said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "This is for humanity, for our future." The captain nodded, his face tight with anticipation. "Let's end this." With a final order, the human fleet surged forward, their warships closing in on the heart of Arcadia V's defenses. The battle had reached its climax. The Galactic Council's hold on the galaxy was slipping away, and humanity was about to deliver the final blow. The dawn of a new era. The battle had raged for hours, and the once proud defenses of the Galactic Council were beginning to crumble. Arcadia V, the final stronghold, was now on the brink of collapse. The relic fleet, humanity's forgotten arsenal of warships, had proven themselves to be an unstoppable force. Each shot, each calculated maneuver, shattered the Council's defenses, as if the past centuries of domination were nothing more than a distant memory. Commander Jonas stood at the center of the bridge of the relic flagship, staring out into the vastness of space. His fleet had done the impossible. They had broken through, overcoming every obstacle thrown their way. The Galactic Council had underestimated them, believing that they were nothing more than a relic of a past civilization. But humanity had proven them wrong. "All systems are reporting green," Captain Reynolds said, breaking the silence. "We've breached their final line. Arcadia V's defenses are down." Jonas's eyes remained fixed on the view screen. The battle wasn't over yet, but the Galactic Council's grip on the galaxy was slipping fast. The remaining enemy forces were scattered, no longer the cohesive military force they had once been. The humans had come for more than just victory. They had come for justice. "We've won," Jonas said softly, though the words felt strange in his mouth. After everything they had been through, after everything humanity had endured, this was the moment they had fought for. But it wasn't just about winning. It was about something much larger. It was about a new beginning for humanity and the galaxy. On the surface of Arcadia V, the last pockets of resistance from the Galactic Council were crumbling. The once imposing citadels and fortresses that had been the symbol of their power were now in ruins. Human soldiers, led by their commanders, stormed through the planet's capital city, securing every district, while the last remnants of the Council's forces scrambled to escape. The Supreme Commander of the Galactic Council stood at the edge of a high balcony, looking out over the battlefield. Her uniform was torn, and her face was grim with defeat. The reality had set in. The Council was finished. It was no longer about holding the galaxy together. It was about survival. "They've done it," one of her officers whispered, his voice tinged with disbelief. "They've broken us. We're finished." The Supreme Commander clenched her fists in frustration. "This is not the end," she spat. "We will survive. We will fight another day." But even as she spoke, she knew that humanity's victory was inevitable. The relic fleet had crushed their defenses, and the tide of the war had turned. The galaxy was no longer under the Council's control. It was now a new era, a human era. Back in space, Commander Jonas's voice crackled over the intercom to his fleet. "This is it. The Council's forces are in full retreat. We have won the war, but we must remember this victory isn't just for us. It's for every species they enslaved, every world they oppressed. Humanity will not stop here." The fleet erupted in cheers, but Jonas's mind was already focused on the next task. Victory had come, but it was only the beginning of something far more important. The galaxy needed rebuilding. The Galactic Council had ruled with an iron fist, but humanity would lead differently. They would bring peace, but they would also bring strength. A new balance would be struck, one that would be fair for all. Jonas stood tall, looking at the stars through the ship's viewport. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted in every city. The people of Earth had watched in awe as their fleets had triumphed against overwhelming odds. The relic fleet had been a symbol of their ancestors' might, but now it symbolized the strength and resilience of the human spirit. The galaxy had been shaken to its core, and the humans had risen to claim their place among the stars. "This victory isn't just ours," Jonas said in a broadcast to Earth. "It's the victory of every human who has ever dreamed of a future among the stars. It's the victory of every species that believes in freedom. And it's the beginning of a new age, where humanity will stand tall, not as a relic of the past, but as a force for peace and justice in the galaxy." The broadcast ended, but the message lingered. The stars were now within humanity's reach, and the future was theirs to shape. The Galactic Council's fatal mistake. The Galactic Council, a governing body ruling over countless star systems, was known for its ruthless efficiency and unshakable arrogance. For centuries, they had viewed humanity as nothing more than a backwater species, primitive, weak, and unworthy of serious attention. To them, Earth was just another planet in a galaxy filled with billions. But that perception was about to change forever. It started with an unassuming act, one the Council thought would never face consequences. A young human child, curious and brilliant beyond her years, stumbled upon something extraordinary. She uncovered fragments of an ancient signal buried deep in Earth's crust, a signal that hinted at secrets long forgotten by humanity. The Council, monitoring Earth's communications, intercepted her discovery. Panic swept through their ranks when they realized what the signal truly meant. The signal was a key, one that could awaken a force the Council had hoped would remain buried forever. Earth's ancient fleet, a weaponized legacy of a long-lost era. This fleet was thought to be nothing more than a myth, a tale whispered in the shadows of galactic history. The Council could not afford to let humanity reclaim such power. Their decision was swift and merciless. Using their operatives stationed near Earth, They ordered the child to be eliminated before her discovery could spread. They saw her as a threat to galactic stability, a loose thread that needed cutting. The operatives carried out their mission with cold precision, leaving no trace of their involvement. To the Council, it was just another necessary action to maintain their dominance. But they had underestimated humanity. The child's death sent shockwaves across Earth. Her parents, devastated and enraged, refused to believe it was an accident as the official reports claimed. They began to investigate, uncovering traces of alien interference. Their search for answers resonated with Earth's leaders, who were already suspicious of the Council's intentions. Humanity, long thought dormant in its resolve, began to stir. Unbeknownst to the Council, Earth's leadership had not been idle in the centuries under galactic oversight. Though humanity had been forced to comply with the Council's rules, they had quietly prepared for the day they might need to defend themselves. Deep underground, in secret bunkers hidden from alien eyes, lay the remnants of Earth's most powerful creation, the ancient fleet. The fleet had been built during humanity's golden age, an era before the Council's influence had reached Earth. It was a time of innovation and bold ambition, when humanity had ventured beyond its solar system with the intent to explore and conquer the stars. The fleet was designed not just as a tool of war, but as a symbol of humanity's resilience and ingenuity. However, when the Council arrived, humanity was forced to abandon its ambitions and dismantle its fleet, or so the Council believed. In truth, the fleet had been hidden, preserved in stasis deep within Earth's crust and the far reaches of its oceans. Its existence was known only to a select few, passed down through generations of trusted leaders. And now, with the Council's actions reigniting humanity's fire, the time had come to awaken it. As Earth's leaders debated their next move, a decision was made in secret. The ancient fleet would rise again. The activation codes, long safeguarded, were retrieved from vaults older than most nations. Engineers, scientists, and military personnel worked tirelessly to bring the fleet back to life. The first ship to awaken was the Eternal Vanguard, a massive dreadnought with technology far beyond anything the Council could imagine. Its hull gleamed as it emerged from its subterranean chamber, powered by reactors that hadn't dimmed in over 1,000 years. Following it, one by one, other ships of the fleet came online, their systems humming with life as they prepared for battle. Meanwhile, the Council remained oblivious to the storm they had unleashed. They believed the humans were too weak to retaliate, too fractured to pose a real threat. Their arrogance blinded them to the signals emanating from Earth, signals that hinted at something ancient and powerful stirring beneath the surface. By the time the Council realized their mistake, it would be too late. Earth's leaders sent a single message to the Council, a message that would echo across the galaxy. You took one of our children. Now we will take everything you hold dear. The Council dismissed the message as empty bravado, but their confidence began to waver when reports of unusual energy readings from Earth started to surface. What could humans possibly be hiding? As Earth's fleet continued its preparations, the humans knew this wasn't just about revenge. It was about proving, once and for all, that humanity was not to be underestimated. The galaxy had treated Earth like an afterthought for far too long. Now they would learn the truth about what humanity was capable of when pushed to the edge. The Council's fatal mistake wasn't just killing a child. It was underestimating the species she belonged to, awakening Earth's forgotten power. The Galactic Council's message back to Earth was curt and dismissive, dripping with condescension. You dare challenge the authority of the Council. Stand down or face eradication. The words echoed across Earth's communication networks, broadcast to its leaders and people. It was meant to instill fear, to remind humanity of its place in the galactic order. But it had the opposite effect. Humanity wasn't cowering. It was galvanizing. In underground bunkers and hidden facilities, the ancient fleet's revival accelerated. Engineers worked tirelessly, their hands trembling with adrenaline and determination. The sight of the Eternal Vanguard fully operational lit a fire in their spirits. It wasn't just a ship, it was a symbol of defiance, of humanity's refusal to bow to those who underestimated them. The fleet wasn't just a relic of humanity's past, it was a testament to their unmatched ingenuity. The vessels were outfitted with technology that had been ahead of its time when the fleet was built, and now, with modern enhancements, they were nothing short of extraordinary. The Eternal Vanguard led the charge, its titanium-plated hull bristling with advanced weaponry and shield systems. Other ships joined it, stealth frigates, agile interceptors, and towering carriers designed to deploy swarms of drones. Each vessel was equipped with technology so advanced that even Earth's own engineers struggled to comprehend the full extent of its capabilities. But the fleet wasn't just machines. It was people, pilots, navigators, tacticians, and soldiers who had trained for years, hoping their skills would never be needed. Now, they stood ready, their resolve hardened by the Council's actions. Meanwhile, Earth's leaders prepared their next move. A small, secretive meeting was held in a reinforced bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. The room was filled with holographic displays, showing real-time data on the fleet's progress. At the head of the table sat Commander Ilara Kane, a seasoned strategist known for her unyielding resolve. "We have one chance to strike," Ilara began, her voice firm. "The Council will not take us seriously until we force them to. That means we hit them where it hurts." The room fell silent as Ilara's plan unfolded. Humanity would not wait for the Council to bring the fight to Earth. They would take the battle to the Council's doorstep, striking at their central command station, a heavily fortified space station orbiting the gas giant Turian 6. "It's a bold move," General Marcus Steele said, his voice heavy with caution. "The Council's defenses will be formidable." Ilara's gaze hardened. "Bold is the only way we survive. If we let them dictate the terms, we've already lost. This is our chance to show the galaxy what happens when humanity is underestimated." The plan was risky, almost reckless, but it carried the weight of purpose. Every person in the room understood that failure was not an option. As Earth's fleet prepared for its journey, the Council began to sense that something was amiss. Their sensors picked up faint energy signatures emanating from Earth's surface, signatures that didn't match any known human technology. The Council's supreme strategist, Lord Valtren, paced the command deck of their flagship, the Eclipse Ascendant. He was a creature of cold logic and brutal efficiency, yet even he couldn't shake the unease creeping into his thoughts. "What are they hiding?" he muttered, his voice low but sharp. "They are insects, incapable of true resistance." And yet, his officers exchanged uneasy glances, but none dared voice their doubts. The Council's fleet was already en route to Earth, a massive armada poised to crush any resistance. Valtren was confident in their superiority, but a small, nagging doubt began to grow in the back of his mind. Back on Earth, the fleet was nearly ready to launch. The sight of the ships assembling in low orbit was awe-inspiring, a silent promise of humanity's defiance. Civilians watched from the ground, their fear mingling with newfound pride. "This is for her," one pilot whispered as she boarded her fighter, clutching a small photo of the child whose death had sparked this movement. Around her, other pilots nodded silently. This wasn't just a mission, it was justice. At the heart of the fleet, the Eternal Vanguard stood as a beacon of hope. Its captain, Darius Ward, addressed the fleet through a secure channel. "We've been called many things," he began. "Primitive, weak, insignificant. The Council thinks we're beneath them. Let's show them just how wrong they are. For Earth, for our future, for her." The fleet erupted in cheers, the sound reverberating through every ship. Humanity was ready. As the countdown to launch began, Earth's leaders sent one final message to the Council. "You came for one of us. Now we come for all of you." The Council dismissed it as bluster, but the galaxy would soon learn the truth. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for justice, for honor, and to prove that Earth was not to be trifled with. The ancient fleet roared to life, engines blazing as they tore through Earth's atmosphere. Humanity's defiance was written in the stars, and the Council's mistake was about to become their undoing. Humanity strikes back. The void of space was silent, but the sight of Earth's ancient fleet breaking through the atmosphere was deafening in its implications. Thousands of vessels moved in perfect synchronization, a testament to the meticulous planning and sheer determination of humanity. At the forefront, the Eternal Vanguard gleamed like a spearhead aimed directly at the heart of the Galactic Council's arrogance. Commander Ilara Kane stood at the fleet's command center, her hands gripping the railing as holographic displays projected their trajectory. Behind her, a team of tactical officers monitored the fleet's progress. "Activate the stealth matrix," Ilara ordered, her voice steady. "Let's see how blind their arrogance has made them." One by one, the fleet's ships shimmered and disappeared from standard scans. Generations of human ingenuity and adaptation had culminated in cloaking technology even the Council would struggle to detect. In the eerie calm of the command deck, Ilara's voice broke the silence again. "Darius, are you in position?" Captain Darius Ward's voice crackled through the comms, calm but resolute. "Eternal Vanguard is ready. We're cloaked and holding position at the Terrian 6 perimeter." Meanwhile, the Galactic Council's central station, Citadel Prime, orbited Terrian 6, like a fortress carved from arrogance. Its glittering exterior was adorned with symbols of domination, a stark reminder of the Council's rule over countless species. Inside, however, tensions were beginning to rise. Lord Voltron, the Council's supreme strategist, stared at a holographic map of the Terrian system. Reports of energy signatures near Earth had trickled in, but his analysts had dismissed them as anomalies. Still, the unease gnawed at him. "What is it you're planning, humans?" Voltron muttered. The Council's confidence was shaken further when a scout frigate sent to Earth's orbit suddenly vanished. It was a minor ship, insignificant to their overall strength, but its disappearance left an ominous gap in their intelligence. At the perimeter of Terrian 6, Earth's fleet floated like shadows among the stars. Ilara studied the holographic display of the Council's forces, a vast armada protecting Citadel Prime. "We're outnumbered," General Steele remarked, his tone grim. Ilara didn't flinch. "We're always outnumbered. That's never stopped us before." The plan was audacious, bordering on reckless. The Eternal Vanguard and its accompanying fleet would use their stealth technology to breach the outer defenses of Citadel Prime. Once inside, they would unleash a coordinated strike, targeting the station's power core and crippling the Council's operations. The tension in the fleet was palpable. Pilots and crew members prepared themselves for what could be their final mission. In one of the smaller frigates, a young communications officer named Mira adjusted her headset, her heart pounding. "This is it," she whispered to herself. "No turning back." In the Eternal Vanguard's hangar, squads of strike fighters were being prepped for launch. Among them was Lieutenant Karavos, a seasoned pilot with a reputation for pushing her limits. She tightened her flight suit, her eyes narrowing with determination. "They think they own the galaxy," Kara muttered. "Let's show them what happens when you mess with Earth." As the fleet moved into position, Ilara gave the final orders. "All units, prepare for Phase 1. We strike fast, we strike hard, and we leave no doubt in their minds who we are." The fleet erupted into action. Stealth frigates slipped through the outer defenses, planting disruptor beacons that would temporarily blind the station's sensors. At the same time, Earth's main battleships began to emerge from their cloaked positions, their weapon systems charging with ominous energy. The first salvo was launched, a barrage of ionized missiles that streaked through the void and struck the Council's perimeter defenses. Explosions rippled across the station's outer rings, tearing through automated turrets and shield generators. Inside Citadel Prime, chaos erupted. Alarms blared as officers scrambled to respond to the sudden attack. Where did they come from? One officer shouted, panic evident in his voice. Lord Voltron's composure cracked as he realized the scale of the assault. Raise all shields. Deploy the fleet. He barked, his calm demeanor replaced by urgency. But it was too late. Earth's fleet had already breached the outer defenses. The Eternal Vanguard led the charge, its railguns firing precision shots that tore through the Council's ships with ruthless efficiency. The galaxy was watching. Across countless systems, broadcasts of the battle began to surface, carried by human operatives who had infiltrated the Council's networks. The sight of Earth's fleet overwhelming the mighty Citadel Prime sent shockwaves through the galaxy. For the first time, the Galactic Council's dominance was being challenged, and humanity was winning. In the chaos, a single message was transmitted from the Eternal Vanguard to the Council's central command. You took one of ours. Now, we take everything. The battle was far from over, but the message was clear. Humanity would not be silenced, and the Council's mistake would be their undoing. The Council's desperation. The Galactic Council's war room was in disarray. Holoscreens flickered as chaotic reports poured in, each more dire than the last. On one screen, Earth's fleet surged forward with relentless precision, tearing through the Council's defensive lines. On another, the Council's officers argued amongst themselves, their arrogance replaced by mounting panic. Lord Voltron slammed his fist onto the central console, silencing the room. We underestimated them, he growled, his voice cutting through the chaos. We will not make that mistake again. Deploy the reserve fleets. I want the humans crushed. The Council's reserve armada, a formidable force stationed across nearby systems, began converging on Tarion 6. The ships were a sight to behold, sleek and bristling with advanced weaponry, a symbol of the Council's supposed invincibility. But humanity was prepared. On board the Eternal Vanguard, Commander Ilara Kane monitored the approaching fleets. The Council had thrown everything they had into this counterattack, but Ilara saw their desperation for what it was. They're panicking, she said, a hint of satisfaction in her tone. General Steele nodded beside her. Desperation makes them dangerous. We need to be smart about this. Ilara turned to her communications officer. Relay the signal to all units. Phase 2 is a go. Let's show them what desperation really looks like. Across the fleet, Earth's ships began to shift formations. Smaller, nimbler craft darted forward, engaging the Council's vanguard forces in swift, calculated strikes. Meanwhile, the larger battleships held back, their weapons systems targeting key points in the Council's formation. In the cockpit of her strike fighter, Lieutenant Caravas gritted her teeth as she maneuvered through a storm of enemy fire. Stay sharp, team, she called out over the comms. We're not here to trade blows. Hit their engines and move. Her squadron weaved through the chaos, precision strikes crippling the Council's ships and leaving them vulnerable to follow-up attacks. Back on Citadel Prime, Voltron watched in horror as the Council's fleets faltered against the humans' unorthodox tactics. This isn't possible, he muttered. They're a backwater species. A junior officer hesitated before speaking. Sir, their technology. It's centuries ahead of anything we've encountered. How could they? Voltron cut him off. I don't care how. I want solutions. But the Council's solutions were limited. Every move they made played into humanity's hands. Earth's fleet was not only powerful but cunning, exploiting weaknesses in the Council's strategy with terrifying efficiency. At the heart of the fleet, the Eternal Vanguard unleashed a devastating barrage of plasma missiles. The missiles bypassed the Council's energy shields entirely, striking the core of their largest battleships. Explosions lit up the void as the once mighty ships were reduced to debris. The Council's desperation deepened when Earth's second wave arrived. Hidden within the asteroid belt near Tarion 6, an entire reserve fleet of human ships emerged. These vessels were older, their designs reminiscent of Earth's first ventures into interstellar warfare. Yet they were no less formidable, their retrofitted weapons and shields proving just as deadly. Commander Ilara's voice echoed across the fleet's comms. Welcome to the party. Let's finish this. The combined might of Earth's forces now overwhelmed the Council. Ships that had once symbolized the Council's authority were now little more than wreckage floating in space. In the chaos, Voltran's composure finally broke. "Retreat," he bellowed. "Order all remaining ships to retreat." But for humanity, this was not a victory to be taken lightly. Ilara watched the Council's fleets scatter, her jaw set with determination. "This isn't over," she said softly. General Steele nodded. "They'll regroup, and when they do, they'll be more dangerous than ever." Ilara turned to him, her eyes fierce. "Then we'll be ready. They underestimated us once. They won't live to make that mistake again." As the remnants of the Council's forces disappeared into the void, the galaxy bore witness to a turning point in history. For the first time, the invincible Galactic Council had been brought to its knees, not by another empire, but by the people of Earth. And in their desperation, the Council had unleashed a force far greater than they could comprehend. Humanity's resolve had been tested, and now it burned brighter than ever. The unveiling of Earth's greatest weapon. The Galactic Council's retreat left a momentary stillness in space, the battlefield littered with the wreckage of countless ships. But on Earth's fleet, there was no celebration. Victory in this skirmish was only a small step in a much larger war. In the command chamber of the Eternal Vanguard, Commander Ilara Kane stared at the tactical display. The Council's forces had suffered immense losses, yet Ilara knew they would return, and in greater numbers. "We can't rely on brute strength alone," General Steele said, breaking the tense silence. "The Council will adapt. We need a decisive move." Ilara nodded. "It's time we stop holding back. Prepare Project Redemption." The room fell silent. Steele frowned, his voice dropping. "You're serious?" Ilara's gaze was unwavering. "We didn't develop it to gather dust in a hangar. If we don't use it now, we might not get another chance." Deep in the heart of Earth's command network, encrypted orders were sent, activating protocols that had remained dormant for centuries. Across human-controlled space, hidden installations came alive, revealing long-buried secrets. In the asteroid belt near Jupiter, massive hangar doors slid open, releasing an ancient vessel that had been hidden beneath layers of rock and metal. The ship was colossal, dwarfing even the largest of Earth's battleships. Its hull was a mix of Earth's ingenuity and reverse-engineered alien technology, a symbol of humanity's ability to adapt and evolve. The Vanguard Eternum was a relic of Earth's darkest days, a ship built not just for survival, but to ensure humanity's dominance if the need ever arose. As the Vanguard Eternum approached the fleet, its sheer presence inspired awe and unease among the crews of Earth's ships. Lieutenant Karavos, piloting her strike fighter, stared at the massive vessel in disbelief. "I've heard the stories," she murmured over the comms, "but I never thought it was real." "It's real, all right," came the reply from another pilot. "And if they're bringing it out now, things are about to get serious." The ship docked with the Eternal Vanguard, and Ilara, along with General Steele, boarded its command deck. The interior was stark and imposing, filled with cutting-edge technology that seemed almost alien in design. A holographic interface flickered to life, and an AI projection materialized before them. It was a humanoid figure, its features smooth and featureless, its voice calm and measured. "Welcome back, Commander Kane." General Steele. "Authorization codes verified. Project Redemption is online." Ilara took a deep breath. "Begin activation sequence." Meanwhile, on Citadel Prime, the Galactic Council was regrouping. Lord Voltran's voice thundered through the chamber as he berated his advisors. "We cannot allow this defeat to stand. The humans have made a mockery of us. They must be crushed, completely and utterly." An intelligence officer hesitated before stepping forward. "My lord, our reconnaissance indicates the humans are mobilizing a unique asset. It appears to be an ancient vessel of immense size and power." Voltran sneered. "An old relic. Let them try. We'll obliterate it like everything else they send our way." But even as he spoke, Unease crept into his tone. Deep down, he sensed the tides of the war shifting in ways he couldn't fully understand. Back on the Vanguard Eternum, the activation sequence reached its final stages. The ship's systems roared to life, its weapons and shields surpassing anything the galaxy had ever seen. General Steele looked to Ilara. "Once we deploy this, there's no turning back." "There never was," she replied. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with resolve. The Galactic Council's fleets began regrouping near a strategic star system, their numbers bolstered by reinforcements. To them, it was a show of strength, a demonstration of their unshakable dominance. But then, from the darkness of space, the Vanguard Eternum emerged. The ship's weapons lit up the void as it unleashed a barrage of energy that ripped through the Council's formations. Entire squadrons disintegrated in an instant, their shields and armor proving useless against the ship's advanced weaponry. On the bridge of the Council's flagship, Voltron stared in stunned silence. What is that?" The human's greatest weapon had been unleashed, and it was a sight to behold. A force of nature, born of humanity's resilience and their willingness to fight for survival. Ilara's voice rang out across the comms, resolute and unyielding. "This is our message to the galaxy. Humanity will not be conquered. We will not kneel, and we will not stop until justice is served." The battle was far from over. But in that moment, it became clear to all who watched. Humanity was no longer the underdog. They were a force to be reckoned with, and their ancient fleet was the harbinger of a new era. Humanity's reckoning. The Galactic Council's forces had been devastated, their pride shattered, but they were far from defeated. Across the galaxy, the Council called upon its allies, amassing an even larger fleet, a force that would blot out the stars in its march toward Earth. On the Vanguard Eternum, Commander Ilara Kane studied the latest intelligence reports. The tactical display showed a sea of red dots converging on Earth's position. Even with the strength of humanity's ancient fleet, the odds were daunting. General Steele stepped beside her. "They're not backing down. They're throwing everything they have at us." "Good," Ilara said, her voice cold and steady. "Let them come. They'd underestimated us before. They'll regret it." In the depths of the ship, engineers and scientists worked tirelessly, pushing the limits of the Vanguard Eternum's capabilities. The ship's AI, codenamed Archon, guided their efforts, optimizing strategies and systems in preparation for the coming onslaught. Lieutenant Kara Voss and her squadron prepared for the inevitable. In the hangar bay, Kara inspected her fighter, the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Think we'll make it out of this one?" a fellow pilot asked, his voice laced with nervous humor. Kara smirked. "We always do. Humans have a habit of surviving the impossible." As the enemy fleet drew closer, humanity's allies in the galaxy began to take notice. Some offered words of support, but few dared to openly defy the Council. The stakes were too high, the risks too great. Yet on the fringes of human-controlled space, a group of independent traders and mercenaries decided to take a stand. They had seen firsthand the cruelty of the Council, and they knew what humanity's victory could mean for the oppressed species of the galaxy. Ships of various designs and sizes joined Earth's fleet, a ragtag collection of vessels that added a glimmer of hope to an otherwise dire situation. The Galactic Council's fleet arrived in force, a massive armada that seemed endless. From the bridge of his flagship, Lord Voltron gazed at Earth with contempt. "They think their ancient relics can save them. They are fools. Begin the assault." The void of space erupted into chaos as thousands of Council ships descended upon Earth's defenses. Humanity's fleet met them head-on, their advanced technology and relentless spirit turning the tide in the early skirmishes. But the Council's numbers were overwhelming. For every enemy ship destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. On the Vanguard Eternum, Ilara commanded with precision and authority. The ship's weapons tore through enemy formations, its shields absorbing punishing blows. "Deploy the Nova Array," she ordered, her voice cutting through the tension. The Nova Array was the ship's most devastating weapon, a massive energy cannon capable of obliterating entire fleets in a single strike. The Vanguard Eternum charged its weapon, the ship humming with raw power. "Target locked," Archon announced. "Fire," Ilara commanded. A blinding beam of energy erupted from the ship, carving through the enemy fleet like a blade. Hundreds of Council ships were reduced to ashes in an instant, their remains scattering into the void. The Council's forces faltered, their confidence shaken, but Voltran refused to retreat. "Push forward," he bellowed. "We will not be defeated by these primitive creatures." On the battlefield, Kara and her squadron fought with everything they had, weaving through enemy fire and delivering devastating strikes. The Council's ships were relentless, but so were the humans. Kara's fighter took a hit, alarms blaring as her systems failed. She managed to eject just in time, her escape pod drifting in the chaos. As she floated helplessly, she watched the battle unfold, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. Back on the Vanguard Eternum, the battle was reaching a critical point. The Council's reinforcements were overwhelming, and even the might of humanity's ancient fleet was beginning to falter. General Steele turned to Ilara. "We can't hold them off forever. We need something more." Ilara nodded grimly. "Archon, activate the Ragnarok protocol." The AI hesitated for a fraction of a second before responding. Protocol activated. All systems at maximum power. The Vanguard Eternum began to glow with an eerie light as its systems pushed beyond their limits. The ship became a beacon of humanity's defiance, its power radiating across the battlefield. The Council's fleet hesitated, the sight of the glowing ship striking fear into their hearts. From the bridge of his flagship, Voltran watched in disbelief as the humans unleashed their final gambit. This cannot be," he muttered, his confidence crumbling. As the Vanguard Eternum prepared to unleash its ultimate attack, Ilara's voice echoed across the comms, a message not just to her fleet, but to the galaxy. "This is humanity's stand. We fight not for conquest, but for our survival, our freedom, and our future. Let this be a lesson to all who would seek to oppress us. Humanity will never bow." The battle was far from over, but the Council's forces now faced a reckoning unlike anything they had ever imagined. Humanity's spirit burned brighter than ever, a flame that refused to be extinguished. The final reckoning. The Vanguard Eternum shone like a beacon in the void, its energy reaching levels no one had thought possible. The Ragnarok protocol pushed the ship to its very limits, and even Archon's synthesized voice seemed strained as it updated Ilara Kane on the ship's status. All systems nearing overload. Estimated time to critical failure, 10 minutes. Ilara stood firm on the command deck. The battle outside was chaos, but her voice remained steady. 10 minutes is all we need. Open a fleet-wide channel. Across the battlefield, every human and allied vessel heard her voice. "This is Commander Ilara Kane. We've held the line before, and we will do it again. Fight like your lives depend on it. Because they do. Show the galaxy what humanity is made of." The fleet roared back in acknowledgement, their resolve hardening. The Galactic Council's flagship, Dominion Ascendant, hovered at the heart of the enemy fleet. From its bridge, Lord Voltran watched the chaos unfold, his expression a mixture of fury and desperation. "They're bluffing," he hissed to his subordinates. "That ship cannot withstand such power. Focus fire on the Vanguard Eternum. Destroy it, and the rest will crumble." The Council's fleet obeyed, redirecting their firepower. Beams of energy and volleys of plasma struck the glowing human dreadnought, shaking it to its core. But the Vanguard Eternum endured. On board the Vanguard Eternum, Archon's voice interrupted the chaos. "Commander, the enemy flagship has been located. Target locked. Recommend immediate action." Ilara nodded. "Prepare the final strike. Divert all remaining power to the main cannon." General Steele placed a hand on her shoulder. "This is it, Commander. No turning back." "There never was," Ilara replied. In the cockpit of her escape pod, Kara Voss floated amidst the wreckage of the battlefield. Her pod's communication systems crackled to life, transmitting the Vanguard Eternum's broadcast. Targeting the enemy flagship came Archon's voice. Kara's breath caught as she realized what was about to happen. "They're going for the kill shot," she whispered. She could see the glowing form of the human dreadnought in the distance, surrounded by enemy ships. The Vanguard Eternum looked like a solitary flame standing against a storm. As the main cannon of the Vanguard Eternum charged, the Council's forces made one last desperate push. Enemy ships swarmed the human fleet, their commanders hoping to overwhelm them with sheer numbers. But humanity's allies fought back with a ferocity that matched their human counterparts. The ragtag fleet of mercenaries, traders, and freedom fighters threw themselves into the fray, buying precious seconds for the Vanguard Eternum. On the bridge of the Council flagship, Lord Valtran watched in horror as his fleet faltered. The humans were relentless, their determination unyielding. "This cannot be," Valtran bellowed. "We are the Galactic Council. We cannot lose." The Vanguard Eternum's main cannon reached full power. Archon's voice was calm as ever, weapon ready to fire, awaiting command. Ilara stared at the tactical display, her gaze fixed on the enemy flagship. Fire. A beam of pure energy erupted from the Vanguard Eternum, slicing through the void and striking the Dominion Ascendant. The Council flagship's shields flickered for a brief moment before collapsing. The beam pierced the ship's hull, igniting its core in a massive explosion. The shockwave rippled across the battlefield, sending enemy ships into disarray. The destruction of the flagship was a turning point. The Council's forces, leaderless and demoralized, began to retreat. Humanity's fleet pressed the advantage, driving the enemy back until the battlefield was theirs. On the bridge of the Vanguard Eternum, cheers erupted as the enemy fleet scattered, but the celebration was short-lived. "Commander," Archon reported, "critical systems failure imminent. Evacuation is advised." Ilara nodded grimly. "Initiate evacuation protocols. Get everyone off this ship." Escape pods launched from the Vanguard Eternum, carrying its crew to safety. Ilara was among the last to leave, her heart heavy as she watched the ship that had become a symbol of humanity's defiance begin to break apart. The Vanguard Eternum shuddered as its systems finally gave out. Its glowing form dimmed, and then, with one final burst of energy, it erupted in a brilliant explosion that lit up the void. The battle was over. Humanity had triumphed, but the cost was great. The Vanguard Eternum was gone, and countless lives had been lost. Yet as Earth's fleet regrouped and survivors returned home, a new era began. The galaxy had seen what humanity was capable of, both their strength and their compassion. The Galactic Council's tyranny had been dealt a mortal blow, and the oppressed species of the galaxy found new hope. Humanity, once underestimated and ridiculed, was now a force to be reckoned with. And though the Vanguard Eternum was gone, its legacy would live on, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity.